Others are tied to your destiny. There are people who can't move forward or can't become or can't take action until you show up, until you do what you have to do. A lot of times in society, we see our in this world, we see ourselves, especially in Western world, capitalist mindsets, we see ourselves as separate entities, as if what we do or our actions only affect us, and that not knowing they it's all an interconnected grid that we all exist in, and kind of like the butterfly effect, the smallest of decisions or indecisions or smallest of actions can have effects that ripple throughout eternity, for better or worse, whether we're aware of it or not. What up, world? I know it's been a minute, but I told y'all from the jump, I'm not a content creator. I just do this when I have inspiration. And I don't want to say I haven't been inspired, because I've definitely been inspired, but I haven't had anything to share. Really up until now, I've been wanting to, come on here and say stuff, but I'm not one that likes talking just for the sake of talking, just to hear himself. So if I don't have anything to say, there's nothing to say. But I don't know if it's currently because we in this buck moon or whatnot. It's 29th of July right now as I'm recording this, but I don't know. I just got to a point where I don't know. I just got had just felt compelled to come and try to articulate what I'm feeling right now and the energy or whatever that's yeah, man. So I don't even know where to start this. Top of the year, I spoke about on earlier videos in this recent series of videos about moon alignment, not just with like full moons or new moons, but with your astrological moon. Me personally being moon in Libra, which passed maybe about a week or two ago before this current full moon and whatnot, and just different cycles and whatnot, and meditation and everything with that, which I've been doing still, maintaining that journey. I don't know how to articulate what I feel right now, but I'm gonna try. For whatever reason, I happened to end up watching the movie The Odyssey today. And I was already familiar with the story. First of all, I would say I was pleasantly surprised by how good the film was. Not that I thought it'd be bad or anything, but a lot of times they overhype these big blockbuster-esque films or whatnot. But this one definitely lived up to the hype. But it was really, I guess, in the story of King Odysseus, that something really resonated with me, through his trials and tribulations, through his whole process, that I felt today was, at this moment, would be something to share if I could articulate it correctly. Anyway, there's a saying I remember hearing years ago, and I'll get to how this ties in with this. Hopefully it'll make sense as it comes through. It says, others are tied to your destiny. There are people who can't move forward or can't become or can't take action until you show up, until you do what you have to do. A lot of times in society, we see in this world, we see ourselves, especially in Western world, capitalist mindsets, we see ourselves as separate entities, as if what we do or our actions only affect us, and that not knowing it's all an interconnected grid that we all exist in. And kind of like the butterfly effect, the smallest of decisions or indecisions or smallest of actions can have effects that ripple throughout eternity, for better or worse, whether we're aware of it or not. Um, yeah, like a lot of times we don't realize the roles we play in our lives or other people's lives, and really just in the unfoldment of life. So, King Odysseus had a lot on his shoulders. He wasn't a child of the gods like Achilles from the movie Troy, who just had the gods just overwhelmingly blessed him with power and ability to just, go forth and smite whoever the hell he wanted to. But he had heart and mind coherence. He was a wise person. He made, as they say, he used his mind and followed his heart to really move through life. And that's kind of, I think, what the movie really illustrated. But also, he had to go through his own learning curve. Learning not to fight against the forces of nature, or the gods, if you will, as opposed to finding alignment with nature and with the gods and God's wills. Like a lot of times you hear folks, especially a lot of the Christian faith, say, like, God, align my will with yours so that we may be the same and whatnot. And that's kind of part of the process he had to do. Because there were things and actions and decisions he was making at times, and sometimes his men and soldiers were making, that were actually creating certain situations that they could have avoided. But through their hubris, they kind of created their own damnation to different degrees, to varying degrees. And other thing about this story that really kind of sat with me, touched me, resonated with me, was his relationship between he and his soldiers. The very men who, followed him in the battle and helped him to, accomplish the siege of Troy. They were good for a season. But as the story carried on, it became evident that they were no longer in alignment with Odysseus. And at a certain point, they were becoming more of a weight and more of a burden than anything. And I think part of that ties in with some of the themes of, they say, the buck moon of new things breaking forth that, that need to in this time. Kind of like the buck antlers breaking forth out of, the deer's cranium and whatnot to show their strength and be used for, what they're for. Really a symbol of power in essence. But the same things that may have helped you or benefited you or even got you to the point that you are now may not be the same things that are going to take you to the next level. The same soldiers who helped him become King Odysseus, become this great conqueror, this great general on the battlefield. Once the war was won, they became a hindrance. They became a weight. And it's kind of like when you hear people say, survival mode will only get you so far. Survival mode will not get you to a place of thriving. The same tactics that helped you survive will not help you thrive. And the easiest way I illustrate that for folks is that there are certain, if you go to prison, okay, just be a black, if you go to jail, if you go to prison, there are certain ways of acting and being that will benefit you and help you survive in prison. Those same means will actually be detrimental to you and actually hold you back outside of prison. Okay? That's why I talk about folks who institutionalize. They get out of prison and still act like they're in prison. They don't fit back into society well because they're still acting as if they're in a place of a savage place of imprisonment. And what helped them survive there will actually play against them once they get back into regular society. And this is what Odysseus was realizing and had to deal with. And this can be, symbolic of people in your life. It can be symbolic of actions, habits, or whatnot, or ways of being, or thought modes that helped you at one point on your journey, but have to evolve or have to be left behind in order for you to go to the next part of your journey. And that's ultimately what Odysseus had to do. And he thought he could take his men with him. He thought, I can bring this with me. I can be responsible for, seeing to it that they get home as well. But that wasn't his load to carry. Their journey, so to speak, had come to its end together. Their fate and his fate were not the same. And the longer he tried to hold them and keep them, the more it strayed him from getting home. And to wrap that up, it wasn't basically until he was forced to relieve himself of his soldiers, and not only just relieve himself of his soldiers, but he had to surrender himself to what is. And that's not always an easy thing to do. In fact, the word surrender is an uncomfortable word because it makes you feel weakness. You feel like the surrender, it doesn't come from a place of power. The word doesn't feel powerful. Surrendering sounds like you're just the opposite. You're turning over your power to something. And in essence, it is, and what we're talking about is surrendering, to not to fate, but to what is part of flow. Like they say, you can't fight against what is. You can still move and evolve things, but you still have to level of acceptance of what is in order to properly process it and see what you need to do to move forward. As long as you're in denial about what is, you'll be hindered from progressing. But the thing about that surrender is that it's really a big leap of faith. It's easier said than done. To put down everything that you know, everything that you have come to depend on, and have the inner knowing or inner faith or inner will to trust in almost a knowing. I got a song called The Knowing I Did that kind of speaks on that. But you hear folks talk about gnosis, about, not things that come from the mind, but just comes from the heart, true coming from the heart that just knows. Like I said, the heart knows. It doesn't calculate, it doesn't process, it just knows when you're truly in tune. And that gnosis or that knowing is a level of faith that one has to have in order to get through this journey. Because that's really the story of the Odyssey. It was about a journey, a man who journeyed from home, Odysseus, and had all these different adventures in his journey, which ended up becoming a journey to get back home. Okay, to get back to the kingdom that he came from. But it was kind of like a hero's journey story. Well, it was a hero's journey story. If you're familiar with the hero's journey, the things that have to be overcome symbolically, that is this movie was another example of that. And the most heroic thing he had to do was also probably the scariest thing he had to do. It wasn't fighting no monsters or, going into battle against all these other people or anything. The scariest thing he had to do was surrender to what is. After he had lost his entire soldiers, his crew, his entire army, those who had helped him get to the place he was, the only way he was able to get back home was he had to surrender himself to the ocean. He had to literally get on a raft that had no sail no oars, nothing to row, and just float out to sea and trust, knowing, gnosis, that all would be well. And he did that. And when he woke up, he was back on his home shore. It's like they say, and I remember watching it. I mean, as I was watching the movie, as he was laying down, resting on this raft and going out in the ocean, I remember, how they say about like in swimming, when you want to float, you have to, it's a surrender. You have to just let go. Stop trying to fight the water. Stop trying to worry about you sinking or not. That fear, because when you start doing that, your equilibrium, your balance goes off, and you actually start to sink. You have to completely relax, which is a more of a nervous system thing. And if you study about nervous system, you understand how that affects your decisions and your processing, whatnot. How the body keeps a score, and sometimes you react. The body reacts or sends urges or impulses based upon its relationship with fear or with danger through the nervous system. So surrendering is something that is a challenge. It's a challenge to the nervous system, but we all have to do it in order to get to our destination, in order to move forward. At some point in time, we have to surrender and accept what is, with a faith and a knowing that what will be all right. And I guess that's all what it comes back to. It's just everything's gonna be all right, but you've got to know and trust in that knowing, and then relax in that knowing, and embody that knowing. That was the key. He had to lay down on that raft, lay all his burdens down, everything he was carrying, leave it all on the shore, leave all his soldiers, his old ways, all his old thinking, his old processes. He had to leave all that and trust in his inner gnosis, his inner knowing, and relax into that faith that what will be all right. And he was. Hopefully, there's some understanding that's gained from, I guess, the articulation that just wanted to come through. On another note, I'm strongly considering bringing back my weekly Truth Serum series. Yeah, it was a little thing where I just kind of do maybe once a week, tap in on current events going on. So I may add that aspect to this channel, in addition to Free Game Friday, as well as other inspirational videos and messages as they come forward. Because again, I'm not gonna force anything. I'm not gonna be here making videos and creating content just to do so, or just to try to get viewership, or stretching out a 5-minute video, or stretching one video to multiple videos just to have content and interaction. That's not what I'm here for. This is really truly just when I have the inspiration and the articulation to do so. So until next time, stay blessed and prosperous, and stay on the lookout. I gotta say, another update. Stay on the lookout for Understand the Man by Nubakhenaten. Again, as soon as the publisher finishes doing whatever they're doing, that's really the hold up. Everything's been done. I'm just waiting on the publisher to go ahead and give me the green light. And I'm not sure why it's taking so long. It's my third book doing through this publisher. And prior two books have not had this waiting period. So I guess in speaking, in living the things I speak, I've just got to relax, trust, and know this process will be all right. And when the book is ready, it'll be the right time. Until then, Peace, love, and prosperity always. Swallow world.
Even through the pain, we gon' make do, make do. Even when it rains, still came through, came through. We don't never change, we gon' stay true, stay true. I done learned the lesson, I ain't never lose, I never lose. Even through the pain, yeah. Even when it rain, yeah. We don't never change, we don't never change. Lesson learned, all dues paid, Cars play, some play themselves. We just played a hand, never been a fan of that.